When we talk about ethics, some people might say, wait a minute, going back to that circle and triangle, shouldn't there be a different word on the bottom line? Ecology, economy, and how about culture? The reason I put the word ethics there is that we do life together in very complex terms. We do it in terms of politics. Politics is about power arrangements. How many of you are in intimate couple relationships? Are your relationships political? You bet they are. One of the key aspects of your relationship is how you manage power. Who has the power of voice? Who has the power of decision making? Who has the power of deciding on the dollars, where they go, lifestyle you live? I make my point. One of my colleagues said, when he took a political science course in college, he said, his professor kept saying, very simply, politics is a function of who gets what and how. Who gets what and how. Of course, we know about norms, informal codes, evaluation, and of conduct. Different cultures have different norms and mores. We know that. We're talking about formal structures, legal institutions, financial institutions, and we're talking about, yes, culture. When we talk about ethics, we interweave all of these basic ways we do life together. I have the term memes and themes. That comes from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who was a philosopher and social psychologist. And he says when he looks at society, society is a function of genes, memes, and themes. And what he means by themes is we all live by story. We all live by narrative streams that tell us who we are, why we are, where we've been, and where we're going. David Corton talks about it in his fabulous book, The Great Turning. Tom Hartman talks about it in his incredible book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. They all talk about how we live in a cultural narrative. We live in our own private narratives. The human being lives in story like fish live in the sea. You are a function of your story. But your story is not isolated from the cultural story. What does it mean to be American? What does it mean to be African American, Native American, Asian American? What does it mean to be a Pacific Islander? We all have stories that embed us into a foundation of meaning. And what Tom Hartman and David Corton are saying, we need to look at our stories. Maybe we need to change our narratives as a culture, as a people, as communities. Memes simply means all human activity, whether it leads to abstract thoughts, the arts, sciences, technological tools. These memes keep growing, and the memes begin to take us over. Let's get back to consumer ethic. If to be human means to shop, it becomes a meme that takes us over. Soul, mind, heart, behaviors, relationships. Again, I mentioned Tom Hartman, and I know we don't like to have a lot of words on a PowerPoint, but in this case, these words are truly helpful. Look at it. We're asking you, as you go to workshops, as you listen to different speakers, will you reflect critically, more deeply, as to how you see and understand the world? Notice that the media, speakers on TV and radio, they basically have the same worldview. In one way or another, we're going to find an energy fix because we need to shop until we drop. When we talk about ethics, we talk about three orienting systems in this context of sustainability. Anthropocentric, humanity above and over nature, domination instead of dominion. And here, as a theologian who identifies with the Christian tradition, I just want to say, we, the Christian community, has contributed to a domination posture by misinterpreting, for example, Scripture, but especially the book of Genesis. And one of the perverse elements of that twist is the use of a Hebrew word from Scripture when it talks about the creation story. Hadam. Hadam means earth creature. Remember those, if you come from the Christian tradition and know the book of Genesis, at least somewhat, you'll know that there is a story of where the Creator fashions the figurine human being out of the earth, Hadam, and breathes spirit into human beings. We are spiritual beings. But the King James translation, based on the Vulgate, Latin Vulgate that the scholars translated from, mistook the word Hadam and made it to a male noun Adam. And that is what undergirds a domination mentality and a hierarchy that is patriarchal and male-dominated. Adam is first, right? Right, woman? Eve is second, right? Hadam means we are of the earth. From dust we came, and to dust we return, and yet we are inbreathed with a magnificent capacity, with spirit. And so, there was a counter movement to this anthropocentric tendency of Western civilization for some 500-600 years or more. 2,000 years, really, since Constantine in 313 B.A.D., ecocentric, going the other side. Since we've been too much man-dominated, let's go more deeply into the texture of nature. And deep ecology, which started as kind of an informal movement in the late 60s and began to take shape in the 70s and 80s by artists and teachers and authors. I mean, it was kind of a movement that was reacting against anthropocentrism and says we need eco-geo-justice. We need to be geocentric. And then what some people are saying in ethical teaching is perhaps a way to resolve this tension is to go to pragmatism, where nature and humanity cooperate in practical ways. And it is a key American philosophical position. Aldo Leopold, way back in the late 40s, wrote The Land Ethic from his Sand County Almanac. And he says Western history has had the ethical sequence in three basic stages: relations between people, relations between individual and society, and humanity's relationship to the land. Back then, he said, we have yet to develop the third ethic. We are glad to say that this is now being developed very strongly in the last 30 to 40 years. When we talk about ethics, we're talking about consciousness, how we think. The Buddha and Proverbs says, as you think, so ye are. Hartman, thoughts create our physical reality, and they also create our larger reality. And then Peter Singer, the evolution of moral consciousness consists in its development from the unreflecting to the reflecting, from the unenlightened to the enlightened.
Dr. Olaf here spoke about culture and consciousness, a dominant problem because we are a nation addicted to oil. We have addictive consciousness. We display all the elements of addictiveness in our addiction to oil and our present culture. Denial, self-deception, rationalization, minimization of the problem, self-centeredness, self-absorption, a sense of entitlement that we deserve to have to live like we're living and not have to evaluate ourselves, and manipulation, abuse of others in the environment. Further reading on this is David Corton, Great Turning of Empire to Earth Community. It's one of the most moving books that changed my consciousness. And he speaks about, well, this is his model of different orders of consciousness, empire domination to something a little bit better, and the high end is what he describes as creative inclusiveness and spiritual creativeness. And of course, as a woman, I like the ecofeminist perspective, which is more the world, the hands holding and caring for the world and environmental ethic. And a personal ethic. And this, I put the last couple slides. Myself, I'm a professor at a university, and since I learned about peak oil and sustainability issues, I'm revamping all my courses with a different focus, and I have to always ask myself, what are we teaching our kids? What skills are they learning? Are they learning the right things, and are they acquiring the appropriate skills for the future? And are we leading them to believe that they're going to have these high-paid jobs, which simply are not going to be there? And everything needs to change, and it's not moving fast enough, and you'll learn the rest of the conference. So one of the things I did was, my uncle was a beekeeper, and a colleague of mine, I took her class, and now I'm teaching beekeeping, which hasn't been taught for decades at our university. If you go to my talk tomorrow on mass extinction, I'll talk about the importance of bees a little bit. It's just one way we use, their pollinators are important in our food production. And finish that up.
And what Hartman talks about is, as a culture, we need to recover a sense of the sacred. It's amazing to think that it's possible to change the world by changing ourselves, by changing the way we think, live, and experience moment. But that's been the core message of almost every religion in history, from the most ancient and primal to the most modern. You can change and save the world by changing yourself. And that begins with waking up to the power of life in the present and finding there the presence of your Creator and all creation. And there we are, the end.